Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to Guiding Star Astrology. I'm your Astro Weather Girl, here with this week's Astro Weather Report. I'm going to show you how the stars are going to affect your life this week. Welcome everybody to our shocking and surprising full moon in Scorpio forecast for all signs. Now usually I keep my full moon and my new moon reports for my Patreon family only, but as there's not much else happening astrologically this week, I thought I would share this forecast with my YouTube audience as well. It's my special full moon in Scorpio gift to you all. That said, my Patreon family will be getting so much more in their video. What it means to have personal planets in aspect to this full moon, what full moons bring us each month, the impact of a waning moon on our lives, and the very best ways to work with the full moon energy to support our dreams, well-being, goals, and ambitions. That's what you're going to get if you're a Patreon member, additional to this particular video on the full moon. So simply join my Patreon family for access to all the juicy full moon and the new moon energy that I provide each month with my reports there. Also, my friends, thank you. Thank you so much for all the words of encouragement that you've been giving me lately. It is growing increasingly difficult to tune into the higher vibrations of love and joy that are available to us in the world. But look, this is a spiritual war that we're in. It's a spiritual war that is unfolding, and we need to support one another as much as we possibly can. So in that light, can I just encourage everybody who's here to reach out and help each other, to buy from local producers, not conglomerates. This has never been more imperative than right now. To support people who've lost jobs and are trying to start new businesses in completely different fields from that which they were trained in. To only buy from businesses that promote high vibration, like non-discriminatory businesses that have strong moral and ethical stances. To avoid judging other people for their life choices. Judgmentalism is such a low vibration and it doesn't help to heal our hurting world right now. To be kind wherever you can, to smile, to encourage, to spread love. This includes through your online interactions. You know, I love reading your kind, hopeful, glass half full Jupiterian energy comments here at the YouTube channel. The other kind, the opposite to that, I can't stand. But thank you to those who leave love online wherever they go. Bless you all. And do what you can to lift your vibration, to lift your energy, you know, to a higher state of being. Now that we all have our down days, that is just the truth of being human. Depending on often the moon and its transits will affect that. But what can we do to lift our vibration out of the doldrums? Well, when it's me, I usually read something. That makes me feel better, especially if I'm reading astrology books. I learn something new. Or I'll chat to friends, go and have a coffee with a friend, or go for a walk around the lake with a friend. Or I do my fuck you dance to the evil that is in the world. That's another thing I do to lift my vibration. What about you? Think about what it is that lifts your vibration and have that list of things at the ready for whenever you need it. Now, if you're into it, another thing that you can do to sort of help the world is to do a little Scorpio ritual under this full moon energy. And one thing that we can utilize with a Scorpio ritual is to make our light invisible to the dark powers that are at work today, but visible to everybody who needs it. Everybody who needs that upliftment. So you might like to do a little ritual focused on those sorts of things. Now, if you need a ritual, there are some, I believe there's one on my homepage at guidingstar.astrology.com if you're interested. But full moon in Scorpio, great time to do such things. So let's kick off by exploring the chart of this full moon energy. And the full moon is here. Here we are, the sun at 22 degrees of Taurus opposing the moon down here at 22 degrees of Scorpio. That will create a full moon. And I'm going to be exploring the chart of this full moon, but I'm only using 5-degree orbs because 5 degrees is most potent. Yes, sometimes you can have bigger orbs of influence with different planets, but really the potent, the most obvious, the most powerful energies are felt when the orbs are tight and close. Now, one thing that's happening this week, guys, is that Saturn is moving to the 29th degree of Pisces. This is the anaretic degree. I'll write it on here so we know. So 29 degrees of Pisces. And of course, this full moon is at 22 degrees of Scorpio here. So Saturn is moving to the anaretic degree. Now, this obviously makes rather a wide energy trine to this moon. Usually we're using only 5-degree orbs, but I want to mention this because it's important. The moon is in trine to Saturn, and as you can see, the orb is a little over 5 degrees, but worth mentioning just the same. We're going to break this energy down and what it means to have Saturn at the anaretic degree. Also involved in this chart is an opposition to Uranus up here, who's almost in a conjunction with the sun. So that's actually part of this full moon energy as well. We have a trine to Neptune as well. Neptune's around 1 degree of Aries. It's a little too wide for my inclusion in the breakdown of this chart, but I still want to mention it just the same. Up here, we've got Neptune at about 9 degrees of orb from the full moon in Scorpio by a trine there. And there's also, very interestingly, a trine from the moon. I won't draw it in again, but I'll point it out. The trine from the moon to the north node in Pisces at 25 degrees. So that is definitely within orb. We're going to be discussing what it means to have the moon in a trine to the north node of the moon. Another thing of interest, we're going to be looking at the 22nd degree. Those of us who know degree theory know this is important. We're going to be checking that out. 22nd degree, the degree of Capricorn that this moon is falling at. And this moon is also conjunct a fixed star. Now let me get this right. Una Carl is the name of this fixed star. You may not have heard of that one. It's not quite as famous as the fixed stars of ancient Persia, but it's important nonetheless because the conjunction is exact for this full moon. So let's begin our jump into all these features, these incredible features of the full moon in Scorpio coming up on the 13th, that's Australian time, the 13th of the month, 13th of May. Now, it may be the 12th of May where you are in the world. You'll need to do a Google check on that, but certainly in Australia, 13th of May is when this is occurring. So Saturn at the anaretic degree. The anaretic degree is the final degree of any sign. In this case, it's powerful, it's potent, it's strong, because guess what? It's not only the final degree of Pisces, it's the final degree of the general zodiac, because Pisces is generally considered to be the last sign of the zodiac. And so 29 degrees of Pisces is the last sign of last degree of Pisces and the last degree of the zodiac, okay? So this is very powerfully a degree of fate. It's a fated degree. We can often consider these degrees somewhat problematic as well. The anaretic degree of any sign is often defined as a sort of a peak moment. And why is that? Because when a planet gets to the final degree, especially a slow-moving planet like Saturn, it's like the planet goes into a panic. It's all like, I'm at the last degree. I haven't got any more time left to do my duty, to fulfill my mission in this sign. And so we go into a bit of a panic with what that planet represents in that sign and house that is relevant to us. In my case, for example, Pisces is my rising sign. So Saturn at the final degree of my first house means he's trying to wrap up and conclude everything that is his mission of Saturn transiting the first house. For me, as a Pisces rising person, you'll need to know where Pisces falls in your chart in whole sign astrology to determine what Saturn is trying to wrap up and conclude in your life by being at the final degree of Pisces. Now, naturally enough, there's a sense of urgency that we get with this placement of Saturn at the anaretic degree. This planet is desperate to accomplish its mission, and so, we jump from one thing to another. Trying to evaluate, should I invest in that, or should I go here, or should I hang out with that person, and what do I do? Time's running out. This is the energy of the planet at the 29th degree. So there can be some real issues with decision making. We might evaluate and reevaluate situations before we decide to make a move one day, and then we might go back on our decision the next day because we don't want to be reckless, but we've got to hurry up and make a decision. So Often, a planet at the 29th degree causes poor choices, difficulties, crisis, and overcompensation. And often it associates with the shadow expression of the planet or the sign that it is being represented. Now, why am I talking about this? I'll tell you why. Because this is going to be noticed under the energy of the full moon in Scorpio. Why? Because the moon is trining this point. It's causing a further activation of this energy that's going to be in play. In fact, Saturn will move to the 29th degree on the same day as the full moon forms. They are a linked energy and they are interacting with one another. We're going to be talking about Saturn trine to the moon in just a second, but the moon will be kind of exacerbating this energy of the anaretic degree. So you can expect you might have trouble making decisions. You might be jumping from one thing to another. There could be a peak event that occurs as a part of this full moon in your life pertaining to wherever the house is that Saturn is at the 29th degree of. So you need to know a bit of astrology to understand this. I'm not going to go into a great deal more about that particular topic. I will just conclude this section of our discussion by saying that the 29th degree, when Saturn is there, brings out the shadow side of Saturn, which is feeling restricted, feeling blocked, feeling held back, feeling like you have to take on a lot of responsibility and duty and to carry your burden. This is Saturn energy. He can also bring out some sort of a karmic retribution as well. We're talking about the shadow expression of Saturn with these energies, okay? So you might feel like you're restricted. You might feel like you're blocked. You might feel like life is heavy and burdensome. You might feel like your karma's coming back to haunt you, okay? These are Saturn energies. And of course, the 29th degree of Pisces, shadow side of Pisces, is having the wool pulled over your eyes, being off with the fairies, being ungrounded, not sort of facing reality, running away from things that really you need to address in life to sort out and to conclude. Instead, you choose to run away and hide. Pisces shadow side energy. Pisces shadow side energy is religion gone sour. Pisces shadow side energy is secret societies and deceptions. So in the world at large, we might be seeing things based on these kinds of themes in the news, in social media, that kind of thing, or in our own personal lives, or maybe both. That's Saturn at the 29th degree. I don't mean to scare you by talking about that, but astrology needs to be realistic. It's so funny. I'll just go off a little tangent for a second here, but I get a mixed bag of comments every single video saying, oh, this is so depressing. Oh, my life sucks. And now you've made it even worse by telling me all this bad stuff. And then on the flip side, I get people saying, oh, you're only focused on the good stuff. What about all the difficult things? Why don't you address that? I'm like, can I even win here? No, I can't. So I will tell you what I see. Make of it as you will, my friends. And of course, with everything in astrology, there is a shadow and a light energy. What we do with that depends on our vibration. And that is something that I discussed in the very beginning of this piece of my video. How to raise our vibration, how to live in kindness, how to live in love, so that you get the good results and the potential of everything I'm going to describe here with this full moon chart. That's a secret that I'll let you in on now. Lift your vibration, you get better energy from the planets. Easy. Let's move on. Speaking of better energy from the planets, Saturn trine to the moon. Here we are, Saturn, moon trine. This is an energy that brings events and circumstances and people into our lives that help us to be more self-reliant, more practical, more persistent, and more organized. These are all good qualities of Saturn. We need Saturn in our lives. A lot of very basic astrologers see Saturn as the boogeyman. Oh, the great malefic. Oh, he's scary and he makes life miserable. No, he gives life a foundation. He gives us something to build on. He is actually in our lives karmically to be like that kind father wisdom, putting boundaries in place. Don't go too far here or you'll get in trouble. I'm going to put some parameters and some rules in place so you don't make a mistake. Saturn in this case, trine to the moon, and this is a real benefit seeing as Saturn's at the 29th karmic fated degree, we are likely to see more, yes, there will be a karmic outworking, but it's for our greater good. Even if it's difficult, even if it's hard to work through, it's for our greater good because of this trine to the moon that's forming. So like I said, circumstances, people, events that require us to be more self-reliant, practical, persistent, organized. It's going to be easier for us to tap into our emotional maturity and our patience under this energy, to detach, to be stoic. Look, Stoicism is a philosophy that we all need to return to, in a big hurry. It is so wise. It's so empowering to just be able to look at things plainly and realistically. It's a very Saturnian theory, and it really helps with life on the planet. And if we can tap into that ancient wisdom, then you can really make the most of this Saturn trine moon energy. Now, I must say this is the perfect energy that we're in the lead up to Mother's Day in Australia. So we're having Mother's Day this coming weekend, this Sunday in Australia, and a couple of days later will be the full moon in Scorpio. So perfect energy to be in as we build to this full moon for Mother's Day, because what this moon trine to Saturn represents is loyalty to our family and loyalty from our family, the appreciation of our roots, our heritage, our lineage. And some of you out there might be developing and discovering a real interest in your genealogy and sort of the history of your family, the roots and the lineage of your family might be really at the fore for you during this upcoming week. Some of you might also get very interested in subjects like archaeology, and research into an ancient past can also be a big part of this energy. Saturn trine moon gives a lot of respect to women. So again, perfect energy to be in with Mother's Day on around the corner for us here in Australia. It's an energy of self-discipline. So if you need to establish like a routine in your life that requires self-discipline, do it in the lead up, like a couple of days before, 2 days or so before this full moon, and you will establish a strong, ongoing, enduring, persevering, and self-disciplined routine. Exercise, diet, daily routine, whatever it happens to look like. This is a great time to establish something like that. Well, before the full moon, while the moon is waxing, establish your routine. The trine to Saturn will give it longevity and give you the self-discipline you need to put things into practice, to lose weight, to get fit, to get organized, whatever it happens to be. Now, do you have psychic abilities, my friends? Well, if you do, you'll be receiving powerful information coming from your past now, coming from maybe past life experiences, maybe experiences that you've had in this lifetime, but deep buried in your, the back of your mind, in your subconscious, back in the old dusty library shelves of your mind and your psyche. And you will draw from those experiences and understandings and wisdoms that will give you some sort of aha, light bulb moments and psychic insights. So Saturn is the past, the moon in Scorpio, very powerful psychic energy. So the combination of the two, especially combining the two water signs, this is a great day for anyone with even the remotest of psychic capabilities. Now we have Uranus also making an opposition to this moon as well, and there's also a couple of days after the full moon a conjunction of Saturn with the Sun, but we're not talking about the conjunction of Saturn with the Sun here. We're instead looking at the fact that the Uranus energy, I do apologize, will be making opposition to the moon. Now this is going to create an exciting energy in the home. The moon is the home. The moon is our domestic and family life, and it will make things exciting and exhilarating, but also somewhat unstable, a bit fractious, a bit like, oh my gosh, what could happen here? Oh, someone just said something at the Mother's Day family dinner. Oh my God, how's everyone going to react? Usually it's me who's saying something that everyone goes to. So I'll have to bite my tongue a bit, pull in my Uranus. Now, unusual domestic conditions can manifest as well. What do I mean by unusual domestic conditions? Well, maybe you have a surprise visitor come and stay in your home, and it sort of upsets the apple cart because you weren't expecting that. Where are you going to put them to sleep? There's no bedding left. I have to make do. It's like a surprise visitor. That's one example. Many ways that you could have some sort of unusual domestic conditions that come into your life. the moon rules our emotions as well. And when Uranus is opposite the moon by transit in this way to a key lunation like this full moon, we become a bit more highly strung and erratic in our emotions. So expect a roller coaster. Expect that you'll be up and down. My poor Taurus rising daughter came to me just yesterday as I was writing my notes for this particular video. And she said, "Oh, Mum, I've been so miserable since we've had the new moon in Scorpio. Why? The new moon in Taurus. Why, Mum? And when will it end?" And I was like, well, it was a pretty nasty new moon. If you saw my Patreon family video on the new moon in Taurus, you'll know why. It was a pretty nasty new moon. You're a Taurus rising. It's all interacting with you, and it's likely to end when we have the full moon in Scorpio. And it concludes that energy. I said, but in the meantime, you're going to have to ride out these last few days with feeling high strung and erratic and emotionally, sensitive. Your feelings and reactions are also going to be very much controlling your close relationships during this time. So my poor daughter's doing the best she can, but knowing astrology gives power. Knowing astrology gives capability to navigate the difficulties. I know it's going to end. I know this isn't forever. Therefore, I can endure. I can be Saturnian. I can be stoic. I can be detached. I can be patient because I know it will conclude. Uranus opposite the moon creates an emotional distance, and this can make it difficult to form close bonds with others under this energy. Now, this might be a difficulty that we experience with Mother's Day and family get-togethers on the cards for us all. So be forewarned, forearmed about that. Don't expect to sort of feel that lovey-dovey bond with your brother and your sister and, others that you interact with around the time of this full moon. And anybody with a strongly independent and freedom-loving nature is actually going to really resonate with this moon. They're going to be right on par with this moon. If you love to go your own way, do things your way, stand up for your truths, maybe be a bit rebellious, hello, Uranus energy, then this full moon might actually feel more comfortable to you than for those who like to follow the rules and dot the I's and cross the T's because of Uranus's strong influence here. Now, there could be some emotional turmoil as a result of this full moon. Because of the Uranus opposition, there could be some dramatic, surprising changes that happen in your life, especially if you have personal planets at 22nd degree of Scorpio. I discussed that in my Patreon family video on this full moon. There could be unexpected events that can affect your home, family, and close relationships. I've already talked about that, but just to reiterate, it's going to be particularly potent for anyone with planets or key points like the ascendant or the descendant at 22 degrees of Scorpio. There could be some massive breakthroughs. There could be some huge personal growth that could come to you. Uranus energy is not all bad. Nothing is all bad in astrology. Everything is shadow and light. So even a Uranus opposition can bless. And in this case, it's likely to give you some sort of understanding, light bulb moment, aha, epiphany that comes through perhaps understanding that you receive from astrology. Uranus rules astrology, or psychology, or some sort of medicine that, or alternative healing that gives you like that breakthrough that you're looking for. Compromise is very much needed with Uranus opposition to the moon in order to balance boredom on the one hand and excitement on the other, and you may oscillate between the two. I don't know, when I was a kid, I remember having days when I would go up to my mother. She'd be hanging washing on the line or doing something, and I'd be like, "Mom, I'm so bored. I don't know what to do." And she would suggest, "Why don't you go and do a drawing?" "Oh, no, I don't feel like doing that." "Well, why don't you go and watch your favorite movie on video?" "Oh, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not in the mood for that." "Why don't you go?" And she would list all these things. I don't know how she bore it, but and none of them suited my mood. Well, this is kind of like where we're at with a Uranus opposition. We want excitement. We want to do something fun. We want to do something interesting. Nothing seems to cut it. So this is the energy of Uranus opposite the moon. You may be in that zone under this full moon on the 13th. Now, moon trine to the north node. So where are we? Moon up here, trining the North Node, which is at 25 degrees of Pisces. The North Node is our destiny point. And when it's being activated by a very helpful and uplifting trine, this can bring positive events that unfold that will affect your future, your soul purpose, and your life path. This could be very exciting. In Vedic astrology, the nodes are considered to trine houses from their placement. So, I'll explain. North Node will trine, in Pisces, will trine Scorpio and trine Gemini, Cancer rather. Whereas the South Node in Virgo will trine Capricorn and will trine Taurus. So there you go. I talk more about the power of the nodes, what they do, what they influence in my Royal Stars Academy, for anyone who wants to find out more about the nodes of the moon. But it's enough to know for now that this moon is in a trinal aspect from the North Node destiny point, so it's quite important for our future. The things that unfold under this influence will affect our path of life going forward in the weeks, months, years ahead. So if you're into this sort of thing, and you'd like to record what goes on and then look back and see how the planets influenced you, it would definitely be worthwhile writing down every little mundane event that occurs for you under this full moon, especially if you have planets at either conjunct the North Node at 25 degrees of Pisces or the moon at 22 degrees of Scorpio. Note it down and see how it influences your life going forward in significant ways. The people you meet, the places you go, if you want to get down to it, the food that you eat, the time you get up in the morning, whatever little details you think are important. Note them down. You might be very surprised at how much it plays into your future. Now, after this moon is full, it's going to begin to wane. I also talk about the influence of the waning moon for us all after this full moon occurs in my Patreon family video. So once the moon begins to wane, you're going to feel an increased sense of personal fulfillment and synchronization because of the trine to the North Node. And even more so because the moon is moving towards the North Node. It is coming towards a culmination that will occur on the day that the moon conjuncts the North Node. For those who want to know what day that is, it's the 22nd of May. That's Australian Eastern Standard Time. So, as I said, moon is waning, but moving towards the North Node, and we're going to feel this increased sense of personal fulfillment and synchronization with life and the events of our life. Emotional growth and nurturing will increase now in your lived experience under this full moon, so enjoy that. Intuition, as I've already said, is going to be very powerful, and this is another reason why. Trust your psychic downloads, trust your visions and your dreams. They're going to be on point now. And all that unfolds under the full moon energy, you could consider especially the 2 days before the full moon on the 13th of May, is for the evolution of your soul. Trusting that what is happening in your life on those days is good for your soul's journey. And it's the most mature way. Realizing that is the most mature way to navigate this time. Despite Saturn being at the anaretic degree and all that might unfold, recognize that what is occurring is for your soul's higher good and blessing. Now, moving along from that, we notice that the full moon here in Scorpio is at the 22nd degree. This is the degree of Capricorn. I'd like to honor the degree theory of Nicholas Stoyanovich, brilliant man, very much missed on the planet. His beautiful energy, his wisdom, his knowledge. 22nd degree is a very important degree according to Nicola's theory, and we're going to explore this now. So the 22nd degree of any sign is the degree of Capricorn within that sign. And so this indicates that some events might be occurring in our lives or in the mundane world out there that pertain to the degree of Capricorn. We might notice that something is getting older or something is aging. Something feels like it's old and not fresh anymore. We might notice that something or someone from the past comes back into our life, the 22nd degree of Capricorn. We might notice that something that we're expecting and wanting and looking for in our life is somehow delayed or late or slow to come. We might notice that more hard work is needed from us where we thought things were perhaps going to be easy or a walk in the park, and it turns out not to be the case. We might be suffering in some way. Unfortunately, the 22nd degrees, and I'll talk a bit more about this in a minute, does have to do with difficulties. So we might be experiencing some sort of struggle. We want to watch out as well for some sort of depression or a gloomy perspective, a glass half empty. Life sucks. It's not fair. Everything's going to the dogs. That kind of outlook. Pull yourself up. If you notice yourself thinking that way or speaking words like that and say, this is this 22nd degree of Capricorn at work. I am not going to lower my vibration to being that in that state. I'm going to find a way to lift. Okay, yes, it might feel like everything is going to the dogs, and certainly we look around us and it certainly looks like that. But you know what? I can recognize stoically that we are going to the dogs, but I'm going to do what I can to be in a better place. Emotion. I'm going to go buy some plants and pot them on my windowsill and enjoy some fresh herbs or something. I'm going to do something that changes that energy of gloom and doom into positivity and hope. Also, the 22nd degree is a degree of coldness, iciness. So there might be something in our lives that feels cold and icy that we're dealing with. Now, it could be that the weather is bad. It could, or not bad, cold and icy. I like hot weather, so there you go. But could be cold and icy weather, or it could be that you have to buy a new refrigerator, or your air conditioning needs replacing, or something happens that has to do with things being cold and icy under this full moon. You might be required to be more enduring. You might be required to be more patient, 22nd degree. There for some people, and hopefully not everybody, but and hopefully people who have the karma that deserve this, there can be bad luck that comes your way from the 22nd degree. It's not a lucky degree. And again, I'll talk more about that in just a second. It is one of the degrees of shortage or lack. A worst case scenario, it can be connected to poverty. So considering that the ruler of this degree is at the final degree, Saturn here, final degree of the zodiac, it could be a day of losses. Something is missing. You lose money. Like maybe you go and buy a beautiful coat down the street. You get home and you're Googling around and you notice, oh my God, there's the coat that I just bought and it's $100 less than what I paid for it. You know, something like that where, oh man, you're not in poverty, obviously, but you recognize that you missed out, you know, and that you spent $100 that you could have saved, you know, this loss of something, this lack of something. Something is missing, potentially, under this energy. Now, another thing that this degree rules is rocky places, rocks and stones. And in fact, if you want to have a better experience of this full moon at the 22nd degree, I would go and get some rocks and some stones and maybe put them around about, you know, maybe some crystals or some minerals if you're into that sort of thing. Get out all your crystals, tuck them in your bra, wherever you like to put them, and start to gather those things in readiness for this full moon to send positive 22nd degree energy into your world, into your environment, rather than all this yucky stuff that is otherwise associated with the 22nd degree. These are part of astrological remedies where we not manipulate the energies, but we work with the energies to get the best out of them rather than being simply subject to the worst. This is also a degree of dustiness and dirtiness. So, you know, maybe get out in the garden and get all dusty and dirty. I think that's wonderful. I love getting dirty in the garden and dusty and muddy and all that stuff. So enjoy that. Make the most of that. That's a good energy associated with the 22nd degree. Maybe you might like to dust and clear out the dirt from your house. That's another way to utilize that energy. This is the degree that is associated with natural materials. So it's not necessarily being in nature, but it's things like wood and stone. What else? Things in their natural form. So you might like to create a garden bed with rocks around the outside, or use some wood to make, I don't know, a bird bath or something like that, or a bird feeder or whatever in your backyard. If you're doing something with natural materials, this is a great way to channel the best of this energy as well. Another way that you can sort of take on the best of this energy and leave all this, the difficult stuff I've already talked about behind, is to perhaps wear some 22nd degree colors. Now this would be blacks, grays, browns, and dark shades. And if you're feeling festive and you want to wear your velvet red, by all means you can. But maybe you wear a black bra, or maybe you have brown socks on or something, and you have something symbolic of the 22nd degree that you can incorporate on your body to have the best of the energy, rather than having nothing and in comes all this depression and gloomy perspective and suffering and all the other things that I've talked about that have to do with the 22nd degree. And I will say that doing these sorts of remedies and working with this sort of energy is actually very important, because the 22nd degree, it's not the most negative degree in Nicola's degree theory. That's another degree. I won't talk about that one here. I'll save that for when we have a new moon or a full moon at that degree. But in Nicola's theory, the 22nd degree is connected to the death of something, especially in the sign of Scorpio, the sign of movement from one state of being to another. Scorpio is the gateway energy. It's the gateway, like the pearly gates, if you like, that enter you into heaven. It's the channel to the other dimensions and so forth. So this is why Scorpio is associated with death, because death is just the channel or the path that we take into the new life on the other side. So Scorpio, sign of death, 22nd degree, the degree of the death of something. So this is a very important degree. Yes, it's considered in the degree theory to be a negative degree, not the most negative, but a negative degree. But we need to look in the context of what's going on here. And everybody has a different astrological chart. Not everybody will be, getting this negativity of the 22nd degree. Instead, we're looking at what it represents. It represents the death of something. Something may be leaving your life, exiting your life, moving on to something else. Now that might be that you've got a pet cat and you're going on holiday, or you have to go overseas for 6 months for work, so you're leaving your cat with your best friend. There is a movement from one state to another. It's not actually the death of the cat, it's the death of the relationship you had with the cat, because you're not going to be living with the cat any longer. Just one example. It's metaphoric. Okay, so don't be all like panic stations. Oh, I'm going to die. No, that's not what this is all about. It is about something ending and concluding very strongly. So ask yourself, friends, what is metaphorically dying in your life in the lead up to this full moon? What's being killed off metaphorically in your life in the lead up to this full moon? What's ending in your life now? And often I find when things are ending, they need to end. They've worn out their use by date. It's time for them to go. And then ask yourself, how can I let go and let God in this situation with more ease? And there'll be an answer that the universe will give you. Listen to your heart, listen to your soul. It will tell you how you can let go and let God with ease. I would encourage you, sit down and perceive how, or envision how you can live a better life for yourself once that situation, that circumstance, that person is no longer in it. What are the benefits of that change? And try to see through a glass half full lens that ending can actually be good for you. How, in what ways can that ending, that conclusion, that death of some aspect of your life bring you to a better place in the long run? So we need to consciously work with the energies in the chart to overcome their challenges and to embrace the potentials that everything does hold. Everything has shadow and light. And by doing so, we find peace in our situation, and we can cultivate trust that way, that what is happening is part of the universal purpose and plan. And in the sign of Scorpio, trust is a big issue. This full moon is going to be about learning to trust the universe, learning to trust yourself, learning to trust the family. Learning to trust is a key learning element that this full moon is going to bring us. Now, let's move on to something else about this chart. I love these patron family videos because I get to really go into the meat and go deep with everything that is happening in the sky. So much fun. I love my patron family videos. This this full moon is conjunct the fixed star Una Kalhai. And I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. My ancient Arabic is not the best. This star does bring a difficult energy. It's not a star that lacks intelligence. It's very clever, it's very smart, and it will generate that energy and influence out to us generally on the planet in conjunction with this full moon. But there is a strong connection to underworld behaviors and attitudes associated with this star. So if we look around us in the news and that sort of thing, we might notice that there is a strong influence of hatred of authority. Not just rebelliousness against authority, I'm talking hatred of authority here, like violence against authority. In some cases, and look, as a highly Iranian person, I think violence against authority is justified when authority is being unjust. You know, we have to stand up. We have to, respect the Constitution. If that's being broken by the authorities, we need to push back. We need to honor our freedom and maintain our freedom, or else they'll take it from us. So there's definitely a place for hatred and pushback against authority. But with this star, it's more like a violence or a hatred against good authority, against parameters that are in place to protect the people by the underhanded people in society. So keep an eye on the news. You might be very intrigued by what happens. We might also see on social media and in the news first-hand results of evil, intrigues, plots, crimes, and imprisonments. Some news might come out about an imprisonment that we weren't aware of, or a crime or something like that is made known because the full moon illuminates. And here with this fixed star, these are the themes. There could possibly be some legal entanglements that are unfolding for some people now, especially if you've got personal planets around this point. Also, predominantly, there might be sort of legal issues that are in the news and a potential for public violence. As I said, oftentimes it is needed to, stage a demonstration or to push back against violence that is unjust. And my God, there's so much of it on the planet at the moment. It's disgusting. Pushback is fine, but not with this fixed star. It's more like pushback against the people who are trying to do the right thing. So do keep your eye on the news. See how this full moon in Scorpio is interacting with this fixed star. And of course, a lot of this is corresponding to the influence of the 22nd degree in Nicola's degree theory in general. So two of these sorts of challenging energies that we're seeing here from the 22nd degree in Nicola's theory and Unu Kalhai, the fixed star that's being activated at 22 degrees of Scorpio here. Okay, that, my friends, is the chart of this moon. Now, full moons in Scorpio in general tell us when we're having a full moon that life is reaching a climatic peak point personally and globally, relating to the house of Scorpio in our charts. We're going to be exploring that for all signs very, very soon. Full moon in Scorpio, it's calling us to up level, which I've already described a couple of times in this video. It's time to excrete what's not working. It's time to consciously get rid of negativity and time to actively work against what's holding you back in life. Time to let it all go. Don't cling on. I mean, it's a fixed sign. It tends to cling on to what's not working. We have to consciously, pry our fingers up and make space for the new by letting go of that old chestnut we've been clinging to. That might be an important theme of the full moon in Scorpio. Often the full moon in Scorpio marks the end of an argument or a disagreement, and sometimes that end is actually not one that actually physically ends between two people, but it's about you saying, I'm letting that go. I'm not going to hold on to that disagreement or that argument anymore. It's just bringing me down. I'm walking away from the hurt it's causing me. Full moon in Scorpio can sometimes cause us to feel a little bit paranoid. We're obsessive. We're going down the rabbit hole too much. We're getting in too deep with something that is sort of causing the joy to be sucked out of our life. So be very conscious about paranoia. We can have an intense emotional release under this full moon. You'll notice this especially in the 2 days following the full moon. You might be really excreting, literally and figuratively, things out of your life. get ready. It could be quite powerful. This is also a time for releasing people from your life, especially toxic people. If a relationship is ending under this full moon, and there will be some that are, it can really bite now. So again, forewarned, forearmed, practice stoicism, practice detachment, all of these methods to help us navigate what is that the universe is causing to unfold in our life. Remember, ultimately for our highest good. Now, this is an extremely intense moon, as I'm sure you're gathering from everything that I have already discussed, but full moons in Scorpio are always rather intense anyway, regardless of all the other things that are intertwining. So we're going to be highly sensitized, highly emotional. Allow yourself to be in that energy. It's the energy that's flowing through the planet. The more you resist, the tougher it's going to be. If you need to go and have a good cry in bed, or, go and, when I was single mumming it, I'd go and cry in the shower because the kids couldn't hear me crying over the running water. That was, my strategy. So you might like to go and have a cry in the shower. If you feel you need it, let it go. Let it pass through you. No judgment, no condemnation. Just let the intense energy flow through however it needs to do so for you in a healthy way, so you avoid lashing out, speaking violently to people, degrading people, or being aggressive and physical in a bad way. Let the energy flow through in a healthy way and you'll be so much the better for it. Now, finally, full moon in Scorpio. An event might come up for you that requires you to revisit some trust issues in your life. Can you trust that person, place, or thing again? Do some journaling around that. Do some pondering about that. Can you trust it? Or is it going to be just easier to let it go? What is it that you need to do to rebuild trust in your life once again? And can you do it? These are the big questions that may come up now for the full moon in Scorpio. So my friends, thank you for listening to this introduction where we've explored the chart of the full moon in Scorpio, and now it's time to break it down for all signs. Of course, if you've listened to this introduction, the breakdown for all signs is going to make far more sense. If you're just going to scoot to your sign, your sun, moon, or rising sign, then you'll only get half the information you need about this full moon. Forewarned, forearmed about how to work best with this video. Kicking things off, it is Scorpio up first. Scorpio rising, Scorpio sun, Scorpio moon. People, the full moon is in your first house. So this is telling us that it's the first house arena of life where you can expect sudden changes to occur. Your attitude might change. Your behavior might change. It might be a bit of a roller coaster with your behavior. One moment you're happy, dancing around with a twirling ribbon from the Olympics, and the next moment you're bawling your eyes out. There could be some real emotional upheavals for our Scorpio friends. If you know where it's coming from and why the energy is the way it is, then you can navigate it with more aplomb. Around us as well. So there could be some trust issues that you are having, Scorpio, with the world around you, and that could be anything. Can you trust the food that you're buying from the supermarket? Can you trust your next door neighbor to look after your cat while you go away for the week? Trust issues with regard to your world around you and the way you live your life are things that might be needing to be addressed as a result of this moon as well. So do the internal look rather than the finger pointing. Oh, damn you supermarket, damn you next door neighbor. No, do the internal look. Where are you lacking trust? And I'm not saying go and allow yourself to buy any bit of processed fruit from the supermarket and just blind faith that it's going to be good for you. No, I'm not saying that at all. Do your due diligence, absolutely, but also look at yourself. Okay, I can't trust Coca-Cola to give me good healthy food. So who can I trust? Well, let's do our due diligence about who can I trust to, buy organic food from and, buy eggs from and all that sort of thing. Do the research and discover who it is you can trust. Also, your neighbor. Okay, you mightn't trust them to look after your cat while you're gone. Well, do you have another neighbor that you can trust? Do you have a friend you can leave your cat with? find who you can trust, what you can trust by looking deep within and, discovering what your personal standards and boundaries in life are, Scorpio, what you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept, how you want to be treated by others, and how you want to welcome into your life or leave out. This is how we discover what we can and can't trust, by having good boundaries. That's what I won't trust, and this is what I will trust. So a lot of that will be coming up for you now. Now also, aside from trust issues and addressing trust issues over boundaries in life, there could be some emotionality that comes up over the issues of this house. Now, first house is the house of the body, and as a woman, I can unequivocally say my most emotional frustrations have often come over not fitting into my jeans properly or looking a little overweight in that bikini this summer. So emotional about the body and the condition of the body, the perceived lacks in the body or the limitations of the body could really come up for you now. And I often think about, there's a scene in one of my favorite movies, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino, where Leonardo DiCaprio absolutely loses it in his actor's trailer because he failed to get his lines right. And that scene just, oh my God, that scene just sticks with me because I've been there. If you know that scene, you've probably recognized that you've been there too. Leonardo DiCaprio got it absolutely right. Frustrated at ourselves over where we've fallen short, be that physically or in our interactions with the world, wherever. And he absolutely loses it. And I can so relate. And that's what this full moon could be like for you, Scorpio, in your reactivity to something within yourself, some area of life where you've fallen short or not meeting your expectations. Now, also the full moon represents reaching the end of the road with something. You've gone as far as you can. You're at the culmination point with something about your body, or something about something new you want to initiate, something entrepreneurial that you're starting, the first impressions that you're going to give. You've gone as far as you can go. Okay, let's use that one as an example, the first impressions. So maybe you've been eyeing off this new guy at work for weeks and weeks, and you want to introduce yourself and make sure he knows who you are. But under this full moon energy, there is a culmination. Okay, you finally meet that person. Maybe you step into the lift one day and then he follows you in, and it's like, oh my God, this is it. This is this culmination. I've been wanting to meet this guy for weeks, and here he is in the lift with me. This is make or break. So first impressions, full moon in Scorpio could be, the end of the line with, I've been wanting to make this first impression. Well, here it is. It's now arrived. An entrepreneurial endeavor. Okay, I'm going to launch my new business online and my new website online. Okay, here it is. It's time. I'm going to launch it. Boom. End of the line. I've built it. It's ready to go. I'm not going to wait any longer. Boom. Out goes the website, or I launch my new business. So we're really reaching the end of the road with something to do with first house things. Initiation, first impressions, something to do with how we're surviving in the world, something to do with our body. Maybe we're on a 6-week body challenge or something to get fit for summer in the northern hemisphere. It's nearly winter in the southern hemisphere. To get fit for summer, and it's D-Day. It's a culmination of that 6-week challenge. Have I reached my goal, my physical aim? Have I accomplished it? So these are the things that the full moon can represent. Gone as far as you can go with a certain theme. Well, my Scorpio friends, that is what I'm feeling into as the major themes for this full moon. There may be other things, of course, that are particularly pertinent to you based on the planets that are in your first house or aspects that your personal chart is making to this full moon. But generally speaking, that's what we're feeling into. Moving along. Sagittarius, rising, sun and moon people. The energy of the full moon in Scorpio is falling for you guys in your 12th house. Now, what is the 12th house all about? Well, this is where we can expect to see some sudden changes. And this is a very psychological house. It's a moksha house. It's about inner liberation. And so really, where we're going to see sudden changes is in our psyche, in our behaviors, in our self-sabotaging sort of activities. So this is where things might suddenly change. And I would suggest for Sagittarius people, you're going to get some clarity under this full moon. The full moon illuminates things. It gives light. And so you're going to get some clarity about where you're cutting your own throat, so to speak, where you are letting yourself down. Maybe you've been putting out videos on TikTok or something like that and doing it in a certain format, and you think it's a winner, and then you revisit those videos and go, oh my God, what was I thinking? I was really self-sabotaging my endeavors here by saying a certain thing or showing up in a certain way. I've just used that as an example. There's a million ways we can self-sabotage. And that has to do with this house in the horoscope. Our self-destructive behaviors are seen through the 12th house, self-denial. So we've got to learn to take responsibility when we have the full moon here. We're going to be shown where we're letting ourselves down. Now we can expect some sudden changes in that area through our own ownership, of the situation, of the behavior. So if you're seeing your old TikTok videos and recognizing where you were letting yourself down, well, you make a change and do them differently in the future, of course. Now, of course, there can be some emotionality with this moon as well. This is one of the key signatures that we've described in the chart of this full moon. And so you might be very emotional about something from the past, something you remember from early childhood, or it could even be you don't even know why you're feeling emotional. Could be something from a past life that's being triggered because of this moon in some way. So you'll be sort of channeling feelings and subconscious memories and things that come up for you from the past that are going to cause emotional responses. It could also be, Sagittarius, that you remember somebody who meant something to you who's now crossed over, and that causes an emotional reaction in you. You remember grandma or nana or grandpa or pop, and you're like, oh, I really miss them. They would have known what to do in this situation. They would have been my rock, and I could have cried on their shoulder or whatever, and you long for them. You really feel this emotional need for them in your life. This is the house of our ancestors and the people we've known in the past who are now no longer with us. I'm no Sagittarius person, but I've sort of been really, missing Nicola Stojanovich's influence in astrology recently. So it need not be even somebody that you'll feel personally attached to. I only met Nicola at the retreat in 2019 in Bulgaria and had a reading with him subsequently. But I really do miss the influence and the energy of that person and the knowledge that they brought to the greater world through their YouTube videos and things like that. So it need not be somebody personally. It could just be somebody that was a guide for you, or like an angelic influence in your life. 12th house energy that you might be missing and longing for, or having this emotional feeling over. This is the house of large expenditures as well. So you might get emotional, Sagittarius, about having to spend a lot of money in a certain area. You might be paying off a big debt, and that might cause you to feel emotional. Now, it could be emotional because thank God, the relief. It's a culmination energy, the full moon. You've gone as far as you can go, and now that's done and dusted. That debt is out of your mind and heart and soul. Relief, emotional, breathing out. Or it could be that there's a debt plaguing you and you're emotional about it. Like, why did I go and buy that car? Or why have I got myself into this situation? And you're feeling emotional over some financial debt, because in Vedic astrology, this is the house of our large expenditures. So large expenditures are not necessarily good or bad. They're just large expenditures. How you feel about it, it's pretty much determined by your own personal astrology chart and what it says about how you feel about large expenditures. But this full moon is some sort of culmination and emotionalism that is associated with a large expenditure. Now, what else is this all about? Well, this is about hidden agendas And there might be some trust issues that you're experiencing, Sagittarius, regarding, it could be anything really, because maybe you feel that there's a hidden agenda. Somebody offers you, a chance to work at their event. Maybe you're selling things in a van, or you're, doing marketing or promotions, and you're like, I think there's a hidden agenda here, whatever that may happen to be. So trust issues with regards to an opportunity, trust issues and belief in the hidden agendas of maybe people that you're interacting with might be a calling card of this particular full moon energy in Scorpio. Whenever we have the full moon in the house of our debts, it will tell us that the nature of our debts may have something to do with the moon's energy. And in this case, being in a conjunction with the fixed star at the 22nd degree of Scorpio, it could be that we have some sort of debt to somebody who has nurtured us, and now we owe something to them. Or a mafia might be who we have a debt to, and that we are feeling indebted to and suffering because of. So that's another way that this can express as well, that might be being triggered and the button being pushed on that one in our lives. The 12th house also has to do with secret places and faraway places as well, sleeping and escaping. And so having the full moon here can actually indicate that you may have an opportunity to enjoy some sort of escapism, or enjoy a big sleep in, or maybe you may have be the kind of Sagittarius person who has been escaping something important in your life and you've been running away from it. Well, the full moon is a culminating energy. This can speak to the end of your escaping something, the end of your running away from something. It's the end of the road with that. And now you have to perhaps face the music. Okay, so lots of the ways this can express, Sagittarius. Remember, your personal chart will interact with this moon in a different way than perhaps what I'm experiencing, but this is describing, but this is the general experience that one can expect on a very level playing field, so to speak. Thank you, Sagittarius. Capricorn rising, Capricorn sun, Capricorn moon, people. Well, for Cappies, the full moon is falling for you guys in, I'll get this right, in your 11th house. And so it's in the 11th house that all these themes of the Scorpio moon are going to be playing out. This means that the house of profitability and gainfulness is where this illuminating full moon is focused. So the full moon is a culminating energy. You've reached the end of the road with something. So it's likely that you've reached the end of the road with some way of making wealth or some way of becoming profitable and gainful. That could be anything. It could be, you're selling some shares on the stock market, or maybe you're getting out of a certain investment that has made you a lot of money, but you realize, well, it's not going to go any further than this and I'm done with it. So there can be the end of the line, a culmination with some kind of investment, some kind of a involvement, some kind of profitable, gainful road that you've been taking. This could also indicate the end of the road with some sort of goal or dream or wish or ambition that you've had. Maybe you feel like you've accomplished as much as you can in that realm and it's time to call it a day. Maybe, you've been dreaming of having a certain manifestation of success in your life and you have achieved that, and so you celebrate, yay, culmination, full moon energy in the 11th house. Or maybe you realize, I was really pushing it uphill with this, I'm not going to actually be able to accomplish my dream. I was overextending myself. So there's a realization and a concluding energy with some sort of goal or wish or dream or ambition. This is also a very emotional full moon, and we've established that. So you might be getting emotional over friendships, over group involvements, over connections and networks that you've made. Maybe you have some trust issues with friends. Maybe you have some trust issues with the networks you've got involved in. Now, okay, this is just coming to my mind as I'm speaking this. Capricorn, if you've got involved with any sort of secret societies or underhanded, underworld, mafia kind of, connections, you might be regretting it under this full moon. And you might be feeling a bit emotional about having, got yourself tied up with certain circumstances like that. Because remember, the fixed star at the 22nd degree of Scorpio has connections to all that sort of thing. This is the house, the 11th house of networking, and it's a very emotional full moon. So yeah, you might be wanting to break free of some sort of, underworld network that you've got mixed up in, and it might be quite challenging for you, Capricorn, to untangle yourself from that. And there might be some trust issues about, well, what's really going on here, and am I in a safe space? So the solution to that, I'm afraid I can't offer you without being able to see everybody's individual charts, but generally speaking, this full moon might be calling out these sorts of things or addressing these sorts of circumstances. But it definitely speaks to the end of the road with something of a sort of underhanded nature in terms of networking and groups and organizations and friendships and things like that mightn't have been for your greater good. So remember, this is a house of friendship. You, as I said, you might have had some trust issues with friends that are maybe concluding now. Maybe the truth comes out. Maybe you find out something that you needed to know about a certain friend or a certain group of friends. And you have to make a decision about, well, are you going to reinstate that friendship, or is it going to be too much and you're going to walk away? This is also an energy, because of the opposition to Uranus, of sudden changes as well. So many of you Capricorn people will be experiencing sudden changes in friendships. Friends that you maybe thought were always going to be there for you and have your back, suddenly don't want anything to do with you. End of the road, sudden changes with friendships. Maybe you were part of a networking group and they're like, no, we don't want you involved anymore. And it could be really hurtful. There could be some very confronting kind of experiences that you have as a result of this Scorpio moon. So forewarned, forearmed about that. And there could be some sudden changes, not necessarily endings, but for some people there could be some sudden changes with the wealth that they make from what they're doing in the world. So from their career, from their aspirations, they're making money. There could be a sudden about face. So let's say you've been trying to get your book published and you're sending it to publishers left, right and center, and you're about to give up, like you're the lady who wrote Harry Potter, and you're your last publisher on my list, I'm about to cross it off, and you get the acceptance letter. Sudden change. You've been trying to deal with it for the last year and nobody's picked it up, and boom, suddenly there's a sudden change with your aspirations, your goals, your dreams, or your potential kickback and financial rewards from a goal, a wish, or an ambition, or a dream. So it needn't be bad. But there's many ways that these moons, these lunations can manifest in our lives, and these are just some of them that are coming to my mind as I'm doing this video. They may be directly for somebody out there listening. I don't know who, but certainly this is the energy that the universe is putting on my heart as I'm talking to you here right now. The 11th house is the stock market. You might invest. Yeah, look, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea to invest in the stock market under this moon. It will be probably a fairly volatile investment if you make investments in the stock market in general, or investments in communal property, or investing in political parties and groups. It's not a bad thing to invest in those things under this full moon if you feel so inclined. I'm not seeing any reason why you shouldn't. Just be prepared that it could be a roller coaster ride if you do. It's not going to be just a walk in the park if you do. Okay, so in Vedic astrology, they consider that the 11th house has to do with side ventures, and any side ventures to do with, say, lunar-based things. So, making coffees, hospitality, dairy farms, fishing, other lunar things like real estate or property development, gardening, that sort of thing. Lunar, domestic-based side ventures, of course, they can actually, I think, gain some success because of the combination of energies that's involved here, especially the trine to the North Node will be very beneficial. All right, thank you so much, Capricorn. Aquarius rising, Aquarius sun, Aquarius moon people. the energy of the new moon in Scorpio is falling for you guys in the 10th house, which is an angular house. And when something is angular, it is much more potent. So we can expect that for Aquarius people, this is going to be an important moon for them, important lunation for them, especially if their midheaven is around 22 degrees of Scorpio. So this is where we can expect some sudden changes. Now, this is the house of our parents-in-law. There might be something changing in the lives of our parents-in-law. They might be going through some upheavals. They might be very emotional. They might be acting out in some way, or you might have trust issues with regard to your parents-in-law at the moment. Do they really have your best interest in mind, or is there a hidden agenda with what they're up to? You might have decided, I've reached the end of the road with my parents-in-law. I'm not going to deal with them on this issue ever again. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. So certainly issues pertaining to this full moon could be felt and expressed through the relationship that you have with your parents-in-law. Or your father is also seen from the 10th house, so that can also be another manifestation avenue as well for this energy. The 10th house is the house that represents the image we need to display in order to be successful. Now, with the full moon in Scorpio, and conjunct with this particular fixed star and at the 22nd degree, it really speaks to having sort of a hidden knowing, a hidden knowledge, or implying that you have certain connections. And I'm not talking about sort of necessarily well-known celebrity connections, but connections, I know a guy, the right man for the job, so to speak. So by sort of having that sort of expression in your life, or saying, well, I know somebody who can help you with that problem, it can actually lead to more success in your life, because that's the energy of the fixed star here. It's the energy of the 22nd degree. It's the energy of Scorpio. And the image that you need to display to be successful is represented by the 10th house. So if you really want to get somewhere, come into things like, I've got the right contacts, I've got the right networks, that kind of thing. Okay, many of you are going to be able to really be an inspiration to others at the time of this full moon by tapping into Scorpio qualities. And I would suggest, Aquarius, you might be inspiring others through your knowledge of astrology or your ability to do deep research, get to the bottom of things, understand the motivations of people. I mean, I have to say, a lot of the people I look up to the most are the people who really dive deep for the truth. Lada from Astrolada is one of them, and she just happens to be an Aquarius rising, funnily enough. So these people who, we get our inspiration from the sign on the 10th house. And with the full moon here illuminating the 10th house Scorpio energy, you're going to find people and encounter people who are an inspiration to you, because they dig deep, because they know the truth behind the lies, because they can peer into the darkness and they're not afraid to face what's in there. They're the kind of scorpionic energies that are going to be inspiring to you now, Aquarius. And so you might discover, a new mentor, a new authority figure in your life who has that capacity, who is that type of person who is really like I say, a mentor or an authority figure for you going forward. Now, this is a very emotional moon as well. We've addressed that in the intro to this video. And so you might be getting emotional over 10th house things, emotional over something to do with your father, emotional over something to do with your parents-in-law, emotional over your career, emotional over some sort of mentor or source of inspiration in your life for one reason or another. Maybe your source of inspiration is leaving and they're going to another country and you're not going to be able to be inspired by them in the same way any longer. Maybe your career is changing and going through some upheavals or redirectioning, and you're like, I'm emotional because it's not going to be the way it always has been. Maybe your boss is leaving and you've got a new boss coming in, and it leaves you feeling a little bit vulnerable. Like, is this guy, this girl going to like me or not? There can even be some trust issues as well with regard to authority figures and bosses and leaders. Certainly Australia should be having some trust issues right now with its leadership, but hey, that's a whole other topic after our election last week. However, trust issues for the general Aquarius rising person can be connected to, authority figures, government, bosses, leaders, the cop that pulls them over on the side of the road. Do I really trust that I was going over the speed limit, or is he just revenue raising? Trust issues are a big theme that comes up regarding authority figures with this full moon in Scorpio. This is also the house of our responsibilities and our social obligations. It's the duties that we have to carry, the leadership roles that we have to take on. And because this full moon is a culminating energy, some of you might find that you've gone as far as you can with a particular leadership role and you're about to call it a day. You're going to hand in your role as president of the Scouts Club. You're about to, call it a day with your position as treasurer, or maybe your role as the CEO of the office that you work for. You've decided that there is something culminating, something finishing, something ending with regard to what you do to get respect in the world, your responsibilities, your obligations. Now, there are some responsibilities and obligations that we can't walk away from. If we're a father, we're always a father. If we're a mother, we're always a mother, for example. So you may want to and hunger to sort of give it a break from all the responsibilities and duties that you're having to carry in the world, but you may not be able to walk away from them. However, this feeling of enough already, I'm over this, I'm done, might be present as a result of this full moon as well. Because this moon is a culminating energy, and this house, 10th house, is actually representative of your partner's family and your partner's family home, there might be something sort of finishing with a partner's family or a partner's family home. For example, maybe that mum is going to repaint your partner's childhood bedroom a different color, and he's really sad because, I loved all the wallpaper from the 70s on the wall with the go-karts on it or whatever, and now mum's going to paint it pink and turn it into a sewing room. So there might be sort of this emotional feeling from one partner because something about their family life or their family home is changing and evolving and moving to something else. So that might be the case for your partner, and if so, be in love with that, be sort of there as a support mechanism if they're going through a bit of a roller coaster regarding something to do with family life pertaining to their childhood, etc. So these are just some of the influences that I am feeling into for our Aquarius rising, sun and moon people. Pisces rising, sun and moon people. Well, my dear Pisces, this full moon is falling in the house of the 9th house, which happens to be the house of the second life partner, the house that has to do with visa matters, the house that has to do with your grandchildren. Lots of things are ruled by the 9th house, and most blessedly, I feel anyhow, there is this culminating energy. There's this finishing up energy, concluding energy that's associated with these things. Now, that might look like, if you have been waiting for a visa to come through, as certainly David and I have been for 2 years, this could be the indication, this full moon in Scorpio, that your visa, your partner's visa, is about to arrive, or some legal documents or immigration papers are about to come through. It could also represent that you've reached the end of the road, or a culminating energy with something to do with your grandchildren. Maybe your grandchildren have been staying with you for 6 months while mum and dad were, settling into a new job in another country. And now that time with your grandchildren is coming to an end, and they're going to go and live with mum and dad in another country. So a culmination with something to do with your grandchildren. This is also, as I said, the house of the second life partner. So something perhaps is culminating in the life of your second life partner, reaching an end in the life of a second life partner. And so we would actually see this as representing the body, the life journey, the purpose of a second life partner. So for you Pisces, if you are married for the second time, then this could indicate that something is changing physically in the world, in the experience of life for your second life partner. Maybe they're starting down a whole new road of purpose. Maybe they get accepted to a university course, or maybe they decide that they want to study something new or do a book on something that they've never explored before, or maybe they decide they're going to get a new job somewhere else, or they want to live in a new place. There's just, could be anything, but there is something changing, ending. And whenever there's an ending, there's a new beginning in the life of your second life partner. So all of these things expressed through the ninth house. What else is it all about? Well, Pisces, you might get emotional over some philosophy, over some belief or ideal or moral outlook that is represented by the ninth house, with the full moon falling here for you. So this is a very emotional full moon, and it's likely to associate with some of these things. Maybe you're emotional about your grandchildren. Maybe you're emotional about your second life partner. Maybe you get emotional about finally getting that visa you've been waiting for. Certainly, emotion is a big part of what you experience in terms of ninth house themes. This is also the house that is connected to foreign travel. And maybe I'm not going to talk negatively here. Let's say you get gifted an opportunity to go travel to another country, and you get emotional, like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I'm going to finally get to go to Greece or wherever it is. So there's this emotional joy or emotional feeling that you might have about some sort of travel. I think about the one of my favorite books as a child, Little Women, and how actually Jo March in that story got emotional and a little bit miffy because her sister Amy was given the opportunity to go and do some overseas travel with Aunt March instead of her. So maybe it could look something like that, and you're feeling emotional because you missed out. Hopefully that's not the case for our Pisces friends. One thing that I do love about a full moon in the ninth house, Pisces, is that it can represent your luck and fortune according to Vedic astrology. And of course, this full moon is opposite Uranus, so sudden changes in luck and fortune. Either direction could mean that you get luckier than you've ever been in your entire life, or it could mean that luck suddenly evaporates and you find yourself going, hang on a minute, this isn't where I thought I'd be. Could go either way. Uranus opposition can be very surprising. That's the whole nature. But whatever does occur, remember, you have the North Node in the first house of you. I feel that any luck or fortune, and I think it's going to be good luck and good fortune for you because the ninth house is a prosperous, lucky house. I think that anything that does fruit, that does reach its fullness as a result of this full moon, the luck that comes your way is going to be very much a part of your overall life path, your overall destiny, because of the trine, beautiful, beautiful trine to the North Node. So I do think that for Pisces people, this is quite an opportunistic or exciting full moon, maybe a very emotional full moon for all the right reasons potentially under this energy. Now, there can be trust issues that do come with a full moon in Scorpio in any house. So you might sort of have a few trust issues if you're dealing with a lawyer or a judge. Can you trust this person? I mean, they're not really Bud Tingwell, are they, in the castle? Are they really trustworthy? Do I feel safe with, entrusting my important case with this person? Trust issues to do with judges and lawyers. Trust issues to do with university professors and gurus. Trust issues regarding, will this university be the best university for me to enroll in to do my PhD? So trust issues are a part of this. And so there might be some questions that come up in your life addressing, okay, can I trust? And I would suggest, one of the hallmarks of Scorpio energy is to do a deep dive into the truth and uncover the motivations behind things. So I would suggest, Pisces, with Scorpio in your ninth house, activated and illuminated by this full moon, it's time to do a deep dive into these people, judges, lawyers, institutions like universities and so forth, religious institutions as well. Do a deep dive to discover whether you can trust these particular places and people before you just, rely on blind faith. One thing Pisces can do is be too trusting, and they don't put enough boundaries in place. So I just encourage you, Pisces, do that. Do put boundaries in place. Do a deep dive. Do have your due diligence about ninth house topics. Foreigners, people in foreign lands, that's another thing represented by the ninth house. You might have some trust issues about what foreign countries are up to. Can they be, are they above board, or is there a hidden motivation? So do your due diligence if you're having to deal with any circumstances like that, my beautiful Pisces friends. Thank you. Okay, Aries. Aries rising, Aries sun, Aries moon. The full moon is falling in your 12th house. No, it's not. It's falling in your 8th house. I'll get it right. So this is the realm of the chart that has to do with external, get my words out, sources of assistance in life. And that can be coming from a partner, marriage partner, business partner, or an audience or client. But it can also be external sources of assistance from like a bank loan or an inheritance or a tax return or something. So yes, it has to do with money, but any external sources of assistance in your life are seen through the 8th house. So, this could be a time when you are illuminated by the full moon and shown where you can get some external source of assistance. Maybe you didn't realize there was a grant going for developing new trout farms in your state, and something you've always wanted to do. Oh my God, under the full moon in Scorpio, they're offering grants to establish new trout farms. Oh, I'm going to put in for that. External sources of assistance can be illuminated and shown to you by a full moon in the 8th house like this. You start to realize what is available to you. I'll also point out that the 8th house has to do with what we receive from others, the moral support, the emotional support, the physical support, material goods, financial support, payouts, windfalls. So for our Aries friends, there can be sudden changes with those things. You might have thought you weren't going to inherit anything from great Auntie Lucy, and along comes a full moon here opposite Uranus, and you're like, oh my God, Auntie Lucy left me her Buick. Woo! Sudden change. Something happens that you didn't see coming. And of course, it is going to definitely have to do with your destiny, because this full moon is trining the North Node, of course. So definitely whatever unfolds in terms of change with regard to support from other people and resources from other people is going to affect your long-term future. I would generally say, because of the trine aspect, for the good, for the greater good. Now, this is an emotional house with an emotional full moon. Aries, this is going to be quite a roller coaster ride for you on an emotional level. So do be forearmed about that. There could be sort of fast changes as well. This is a very quick house. Fast changes of emotional state of being. You wake up in the morning and you're singing in the shower, you get on the bus to go to work, and you pick up on the person's energy right next to you. They're a misery guts, and you get off the bus and you're like, oh my God, the world is so depressing. I just want to end it all right now. So big upheavals with emotional experiences that you mightn't even be able to put a finger on as well. This is really like double whammy energy for trust issues. Trust issues in all realms. Can you trust your partner? Can you trust your boss? Can you trust yourself to do the right thing in a circumstance? This is like the house that's speaking to having big trust issues in every possible realm. So I would also suggest be very integrous, Aries, as much as you can be, because this is the house that has to do with secret societies. It has to do with the mafia. It has to do with crime organizations. And so coupled with the conjunction at the 22nd degree for our Aries friends, with this particular fixed star that I talked about in the introduction to this video, this is a rather challenging one if you're involved in any of those secret societies or organizations or groups that are sort of part of the underworld. You may find it very difficult now if you're part of that. There can be certainly big trust issues regarding your connections with those sorts of circles as well. And a full moon energy is often indicative of reaching the end of the road with something or someone. So something's culminating, something's finishing. Maybe your association with that underworld group is drawing to a close. Maybe your association with, you know, that those benefits you are getting by being in the mafia finishing up for you, Aries. So just be careful. This is a really quite a volatile, I would suggest, full moon for our Aries friends, especially if they're moving in those sorts of realms. Okay, what else can I let you know about this particular energy? Well, the full moon represents sudden changes, and this is a house of fast changes, and this is also the 11th house from the 10th house, your career and worldly aspirations. So there could be sudden, like unexpected changes, big changes in the positive for your career, my beautiful Aries friends. So essentially, things could change for the better in that regard. 11 houses from the 10th in terms of what you're getting in remuneration from what you're putting out into the world. But also, as I've already said, be careful, because some of the change could have to do with your association with hidden groups. Okay, so it could go either way. This full moon, it has a shadow side, but it also has a light side as well. This is a house of the occult as well. So I would suggest that it's also possible under this full moon that you will be shown the truth about some occult practices, and maybe you'll get more insight into astrology, more understanding. It'll make more sense to you because the moon will illuminate certain astrological practices or techniques for you. The moon could also illuminate other alternative healing methods, or uses of different mechanisms for our health, for example, that we can associate here, like what we would call occult practices to do with medicine, to do with health and well-being. A lot of these are very psychological. This is a house of therapeutic healing, psychological healing. So you might be getting shown some answers here through this illuminating full moon. Now also, your psychic abilities are really switched on right up to overdrive, like Marty McFly, my friends, because this is the 8th house of our psychic intuition. This is a very psychic full moon energy, so trust your intuition, trust any omens that you see, forming around you. The 8th house also has to do with sex, and of course we haven't talked about sexuality and sexual desire or behavior with this full moon in the introductory piece, but in the Aries chart it is going to illuminate some kind of sexual approach. Now, we did talk about this full moon having a connection to our destiny because of the trine to the North Node. So your sexual encounters and sexual activity may actually influence your long-term future. We also have a trine to Saturn. So you might find that there is a high level of endurance and perseverance that you can apply to your sex life now that will be a blessing for you long term as well. So what I'm seeing here is definitely some sexual interaction, sexual strength, sexual capacity that is somehow going to be of importance and influence for you going forward long term. So this is quite exciting for many Aries people. Of course, it really depends what's happening in your natal chart and how that natal chart is interacting with this particular full moon energy, and if you have any natal planets around 22 degrees. But really, there can be a lot of shifts of energy regarding sexuality and sexual appearance that happens here. I would just be a little careful, Aries, because it is at the 22nd degree of Scorpio, and we know that's a difficult degree. So just be like, you've probably got a lot of, like I said, endurance in the bedroom, capability to go all night, but the 22nd degree can often mean the ending of something, or the cutting out of something, or the death of something in the house of death, the house of sexuality. So just be careful that you don't overdo it in the bedroom, or that you keep things respectful and honorable in the bedroom, just as you would wish someone to treat you in the bedroom as well, just because of the nature of this particular moon being a little bit on the iffy side. All right, moving along for my beautiful Aries friends to Taurus rising, sun and moon. Well, the energy of the Scorpio full moon is falling for you in the 7th house, the house of connection, partnerships, relationships, and balance and harmony. So this is a very interesting one, Taurus. You know, you like balance, you like harmony, but this full moon is a bit off kilter. It's opposite Uranus, so it's not balanced, it's not harmonious, it's more like a roller coaster ride. So you can expect sudden changes to occur with things in your life that have previously felt harmonious and balanced and equal and everything being good. So that could cause some emotional reactions in you when you see everything that was, working well for you in your life suddenly tilting or teetering. Keep that in mind. This is an energy of the moon in Scorpio. Perhaps you might like to use some of the remedies that I spoke about in the introductory piece of this particular video. This is an indication that some of your audience, the public, other people, your clients, might be a bit on the dark side, because remember, this is at the 22nd degree. It's conjunct with that rather sinister fixed star. And so, you might be having some sort of underhanded dealings with these people. There could be, you might encounter people in your life under this full moon that are part of some of the underworld organizations, perhaps, dealing with the public who are involved in those sorts of things. Maybe you get clients who come from those sort of secret groups or whatever, that are part of this energy manifesting for you as well. You may be reaching the end of the road with something to do with the 7th house. So maybe you've been counseling somebody, or you've had a client, and now that their run of 10 visits has ended and you're not going to see them anymore. So the end of the road with a certain client, the end of the road with an audience, the end of the road with something to do with your marriage as well could be seen from here. So, maybe, hubby would always cook on a Tuesday night and you loved it when he would cook on a Tuesday night and you look forward to that. But now he's got to work late every Tuesday night and you're going to have to make your own dinner. And it's like, damn it, something's changing in the life I have with my husband or my wife, or, something is shifting, something's ending, because a full moon means the end of the road with something. Now, that said, we have a full moon in your 7th house every year. Everybody has a full moon in their 7th house at least once a year. And so don't be freaked out by me saying that you reaching the end of the line with something to do with a relationship. It's not meaning the relationship is necessarily going to end, but something in that relationship is culminating. It is gone as far as it can go. Hubby can't cook dinner on a Tuesday night anymore, and so something has to change. So this is just, it could be something as simple and mundane as that, but that could be how this full moon plays out in your particular chart. Remember, your own planets, your own birth chart will be interacting with this full moon in some way that makes it very unique to you. And what I'm giving you here, Taurus, is just a general overview, okay? Now, the 7th house has to do with our publicity and our approach to public relations. Some of you might be taking a bit of an underhanded approach because of the conjunction with the 22nd degree and the fixed star at this degree. So, keep your integrity clean if that's what you're going to do, and try to keep everything as above board and balanced and fair as you possibly can. There might be some trust issues that come up as a result of this full moon. Maybe hubby doesn't come home to cook dinner on Tuesday night for you like he always does. Maybe he rings and says, I'm going out for drinks with the guys after work. And you're like, what's going on here? Trust issues with a partner, trust issues with a client, trust issues with an audience member, trust issues with a business associate. These are the realms where trust issues would likely play out. It's also the house of lawyers. So if you're having dealings with a lawyer, you might be questioning how much you can trust him. So don't be surprised if these things come up. That just because you've got trust issues popping up, rearing their ugly heads, doesn't mean that there's anything to worry about. It just means your reaction to that person is a little bit skeptical. Not that they're doing anything wrong. This is not a full moon that says they're up to no good. It just says you're having this trust issue energy as a result of this moon. So just so you know that. Taurus, if you have issues with your veins, then you want to double check on those as a result of this full moon energy. The full moon in the 7th house, which is connected to veins in Vedic astrology. So, you know, you might be a good idea to get, like if you've got varicose veins in your legs, I don't know if a massage is a good idea for that sort of thing, but some sort of treatment might be a good idea to explore under this full moon energy to support you and help you going forward with that physical issue. Also, this is the house of foreign trade as well in Vedic astrology. So there might be something being illuminated for you with regard to trade and dealings of a foreign nature. Now, most of people in Western astrology see the 9th house as to do with foreign trade. But in the Vedic system, the 9th house has to do with foreign cultures, and foreign business affairs are seen through this house. The 10th from the 10th, which is 7th. So there might be some illumination, something being revealed about some foreign business affairs and business associates in some manner here as well. This is also a culminating energy. So if you had a foreign contract or arrangement to, you know, import, export or something like that, it might be coming to a conclusion as a result of this full moon at this point in the chart. Could also indicate that perhaps this is somewhere you might have a sudden change. You know, you thought you were set, you had a contract for life with this foreign company, and they've decided, no, these tariff wars are going bonkers and we're not going to do that anymore, and you're left high and dry. So definitely some upheavals for our beautiful Taurus friends with foreign trade and foreign affairs and foreign businesses might be on the cards. And stating the obvious, this is exactly what's happening in the whole world at large, but it's our Taurus friends who might be the most susceptible to this under this full moon energy. Now, because it's angular, this 7th house placement of the full moon can give very strong results. So it can affect your partner. They might be feeling very emotional. There might be something concluding in their life. They might be reaching the end of the road with something significant in their life, because the 7th house is our partners in general and our first life partner in particular. But you know what? The full moon is also aspecting in Vedic astrology you, the first house. So Taurus, it could be that you're the one who's very emotional. You're the one who's going through a lot of upheavals and changes. You're the one who's really reaching a culminating phase in your life where something is ending, something is concluding, something's wrapping up. And I gave the example in the introductory piece to this video about my daughter who's a Taurus rising. It's exactly what she's going through in the lead up to this full moon. She had a rough trot with the rather nasty new moon in Taurus, which I described in my video for my Patreon family, all about the new moon in Taurus. And in the waxing, growing phase of that new moon in Taurus to the full moon in Scorpio, it can mean a lot of emotional upheaval. So if you know this, you know where it's coming from. You can ride out the energy with Saturnian endurance, perseverance, and try and keep a glass half full approach as much as you possibly can. That's what I'm feeling into for our beautiful Taurus friends. Okay, Gemini. Gemini rising, Gemini sun, Gemini moon people. The energy of our full moon in Scorpio is falling in the 6th house. Now, this is a very interesting placement to have a full moon. It means that something is culminating with the well-being and the health of your body, with the balance of your body and the balance between body and spirit as well. So I feel that for many Gemini people, something's being revealed to you about the diet that you've been on, and you may be realizing, I can't go any further eating bread and gluten anymore and living in a Western country, because that glyphosate is absolutely damaging my system. And so you've reached the end of the line with a certain dietary habit or a dietary behavior or a physical activity behavior, like, I can't keep lifting those heavy weights down at the gym because my back is not coping any longer. I need to find something that's softer and gentler on my back. So How we care for our body, how we use our body, what we do with our body is seen through the 6th house. And there's some sort of illuminating factor that's now showing up for our beautiful Gemini friends about how they're using their body, what they're eating, etc. So that's a biggie with this full moon. Something is being shown to you and revealed to you, and you're probably reaching the end of the road, the culminating point with regard to some of these things. Now, the 6th house isn't only about the body. The 6th house also has to do with where we struggle and why. So in a positive sense, our struggles, our issues, our conflicts, managing our conflicts might be coming to an end. We might have no need to deal with that adversity anymore in our lives because it's concluding, it's finishing. Maybe we were dealing with a problematic work colleague or a problematic employee, and we no longer have to because they're leaving. Woohoo! So something could be finishing up with regard to that difficult, conflicting, adverse situation. This is also, this placement of the full moon has to do with cleaning. The full moon here is going to illuminate what is not clean in your life that needs cleansing. It's a house of cleansing. So it could be your house. It could be, we already talked about your body. It could be your pets. Something might need cleaning. And so many of you Gemini people will be, ripping things out of the cupboards and rearranging the linen in there and all that sort of stuff. This is a good moon to do that with. It's kind of like, well, we've gone as far as we can with that overflowing cupboard. Now I have to make some changes. Now I have to clean things out. Now we have to, send a few things to the thrift store. So very much full moon, domestic life is seen by the placement of the moon, the transit of the moon. So domestic life in the house of cleaning, here we go. Some big changes happening there. And certainly this full moon is about big changes that come out of the blue because of the opposition to Uranus. So you think the house is running fine. You open up the cupboard one day and lo and behold, you've got cockroaches running around in the back of there. Oh my God, shock, surprise, horror. You've got to make some changes. You've got to change what's being stored in there. You've got to clean it out. You've got to fumigate, whatever you've got to do. So there's surprising changes. I've given you an illustration of something that's come from a negative outworking, but it could be something positive as well. Maybe you find that you've got all this pantry space and because you've cleaned things out and you're like, you know what, I'm going to bottle those apricots in the backyard and we're going to have apricots all next year. Bonus. So, you do something domestic, you clean the house and the cupboards is giving you the space so you can, create something better for your domestic environment. So some sort of change, some sort of shifting of the energy regarding your surroundings, regarding your everyday environment, which is a 6th house topic. If you're a Gemini person and you rent out a house and you've got tenants, this energy might speak to you needing to be a little bit cautious about the tenants that you've got. Double check everything's a-okay with the way they're treating your home and so forth, because this is at the 22nd degree, rather inauspicious degree in the Nikola Stoyanovich degree theory. Also, I would suggest that being conjunct with this particular fixed star that's here as well is not helpful to tenants behaving above board and honestly and openly. So you might need to double check if you are, a landlord, or if you're an employer and you've got employees, just check in on everything. Make sure it's all going okay and as it should be. Don't be afraid to look into the nitty-gritty details under this full moon because it might reveal some truths that need to be aired under this energy. Shuffling along here, thank you Gemini. Moving to Cancer. Cancer rising, Cancer sun, Cancer moon people. That puts this full moon down in the 5th house here. This is the full moon in Scorpio where we can expect to see some sudden changes in our lives. Now, this could be in our relationship with young people, particularly with our children, perhaps, our firstborn, particularly. If we're a Cancer person and there's been something, difficult with our firstborn child, maybe the relationship has been a bit fractured for some reason or another, this is an energy that can cause a light to be shone on that particular circumstance. There could be some truth that comes out that is revealed. Trust issues might bubble up for for you to address. And certainly if this is happening with your child, maybe getting it out in the open, not holding your cards close to your chest as Scorpio might be inclined to want to do, but laying things out on the table might be a better approach right now. This could also indicate, because of the rather underhanded nature of the 22nd degree and the fixed star at the 22nd degree, this could also indicate that maybe your firstborn child Cancer is somehow getting involved with the wrong kinds of people. So if that is the case, you may like to check in on who your child is being friends with, and are they suitable, or who they're working for, are they suitable for your child and their circumstances in life. So just do a double check, like we good parents should do in that situation. But certainly there can be some unexpected changes in the life of a child, but also in the life of a lover, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. This is the house of the people we're in love with. So hopefully, if you're married, that is still your partner. But if not, it's also one of the houses that represents having affairs. And could be, if you're not careful, that the illuminating full moon might reveal if you are. Be careful about those sorts of circumstances, I guess. But if you are in just a love relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend kind of a relationship with somebody, there could be some trust issues that come up. You might not, this is a difficult full moon, and we've explored why in the introduction to this video. This is a difficult full moon, and so there could be some issues that come up that, again, you're going to need to lay on the table, get them out in the open, air the dirty laundry as a result of this influence of this full moon. Things could get emotional. This is a very emotional full moon in Scorpio, opposite Uranus, and conjunct these difficult degrees, etc. So don't be surprised if you get emotional over something to do with your child, or to do with your loved one, or even to do with something that you do love. Maybe you have cleaners who come to your house and they break your antique vase that grandma left you, and it was something that you loved more than anything else in the whole wide world. What we love is seen through the fifth house. And so there might be an emotional response over something that we love. Like I said, could be a vase, could be anything, could be a pet, could be a lover, children, anything. If it's something that is dear to your heart, that you love, you could get very emotional about it. Now, the fifth house is also the house of what we enjoy doing the most. For some people, that's sports. For some people, that's, reading a book. For some people, that's snuggling in bed. It could be many different things for many different people, but what you enjoy doing the most is seen through the fifth house, and that includes our hobbies, the things we like to fill our spare time with. That aren't necessarily connected to anything we're going to earn money for, or work for, or anything. So you might find that there might be some sudden changes with the hobbies you're interested in, or there might be a culminating influence. The full moon is the fulfillment of something with a hobby. That could look like many different things, but for example, somebody might see one of your paintings on display at a local cafe because you love to paint in your spare time, and your friend has a cafe where they put them up for you. Somebody sees one of your paintings and they come around to knock on your door and say, hey, we're wanting to do an exhibition. Your paintings are fantastic. We want to display them in the local art gallery. Well, there's a sudden unexpected culmination of your hobby, reaching some form of fulfillment, reaching some form of blossoming and fruiting in your life. That could take a million different scenarios, but that is potentially one of them. What is your hobby? What do you love to do? How do you spend your spare time? There could be some sort of culminating influence that's playing out in that realm. It could also spell the end of a hobby for you. Maybe you liked power walking, that Olympic sport where you're just practically running, but there's a strategy to it. You've got to have a foot on the ground all the time. Maybe you have some love of that, but then maybe it could be that something difficult happens and your feet start getting chronic blisters all the time from all the power walking, or, sports walking, or whatever it's called that you're doing. And so that hobby, that sport that you're into, has to come to an end because your feet aren't built for it anymore. And you've got to be kinder to your feet. So maybe you're reaching the end of the road with that hobby, that activity, that sport that you've always loved. So you might have to turn your attention to something new and find somewhere new to direct your energy to in the future in terms of what you love to do, what makes you feel alive, gives you joy. That's one example. Of course, there's many ways that a hobby may actually come to a conclusion or an end, and that can be one of the expressions of this, Cancer. This is one of the houses of luck. It's also a house connected to gambling and taking risks, having a bit of a crack, as we say in Australia. And certainly, Cancer, with this energy, you might be having a bit of a crack, taking a bit of a gamble on something, and there could be some surprising outcome that occurs because of it. Because surprising outcomes are associated with Uranus, which is all a part of this full moon energy. So, gambling's always a bit of a risk. You never know what the outcome truly is going to be, and never more so when Uranus is involved in the full moon in the 5th house energy. So, yeah, if you are inclined to sort of have a bit of a flutter, then do be careful, because the outcome could be quite significant one way or another. So don't put your life savings into anything. Be a bit sort of cautious and careful about where you lay a bet. Now, if you're the kind of person who doesn't have enough joy and happiness in their life, this is going to be a really difficult full moon for you, because this house, yes, it's the house of joy, but it's also the house of burnout from not having enough joy and happiness in life. And remember, this is at the 22nd degree, conjunct a rather difficult fixed star, opposite Uranus, and with a trine to Saturn, which trine is good, but Saturn's at the 29th anaretic degree. So do have some strategies up your sleeve, Cancer, for bringing more joy, bringing more happiness into your life. What do you love to do? Try and fill your life with the things that you love now that can help you under this energy. Charge up your joy. I would suggest look to where the ruler of your 5th house, Mars, actually sits in your chart, and get some ideas from the Mars placement, because wherever the 5th house Lord resides is where we can charge up our joy. This is also the house of changes in career. So it's the 8th house from the 10th. So in this instance, it could represent that your career is about to change in an unexpected, surprising way, opposite Uranus, of course, and trining the North Node, which is your destiny point. So somebody might come to you with a career offer, an offer too good to refuse, that you might like to pursue for career. Or you might take your career path in a totally different direction that you never expected you would, but ultimately it's going to take you further into meaning and purpose and destiny. Here we are, 9th house energy, where the North Node is currently transiting. So Cancer, some big changes here that might be coming your way. I do feel that this is a very beneficial moon for you. Even though I've illustrated some challenges, it's happening in the 5th house of good luck. It's making trine to Saturn and the North Node here in the sign of Pisces, which is your 9th house of fortune. And of course, it will also be, depending on the degree of your ascendant, making a grand trine if you have your ascendant in the early 20s of Cancer. So potentially for a lot of Cancer people, this could be a very powerful full moon that brings more luck and good fortune and benefit into your life, despite it being at the 22nd degree, despite it being in a conjunction with a rather difficult fixed star. You've got to weigh up when you're looking at astrology. Are there more difficult energies than there are beneficial energies, and be able to make a call from that sort of thing? And I do think for Cancer people, this is more beneficial than it is difficult. So that's some good news. Certainly in the house of gambling, with the fixed star involved, could mean some sort of windfall or opportunity coming to you, my beautiful Cancer friends, from some sort of mafia organization, like you buy a ticket in a raffle hosted by some mafia organization and you win. Like it could look like that. So need not always be that the underworld, represented by this fixed star, are always going to be a negative, destructive influence in your life. we do need to keep that in mind, that sometimes things go in our favor, and this is one of those instances, Cancer, where it just might. I'd also point out, Cancer, that the moon happens to rule your sign. So this is a very significant energy to have the full moon in the lucky 5th house with all of these potential grand trines forming as well. And of course, you've got the sun in the 11th house of big rewards and gains. So I think it could be really rather good for Cancer people. But do be stoic, do be wise and mature, feet on the ground, and handle whatever comes your way, as I said in the introductory piece to this video. But know that, hey, you might be the lucky ones out of all of this full moon craziness, Cancer. Moving along. Thank you, Cancer. Leo rising, Leo sun, Leo moon. Well, guys, Leo friends, the full moon's falling in your 4th house. And so this is where things are likely to be changing the most. And this is a full moon of significant change, but change that we might find hard to embrace because it's a fixed sign. It's Scorpio, doesn't like change. And neither do any of the other fixed signs really go for much change either. Although Leo probably more than any other, being a fire sign. But you've got the fixed signs on the cross axis here of all the significant houses. And so, yeah, this is a full moon of endings and culminations, but they mightn't feel exactly comfortable. That's what I'm trying to say here. This is the house of your life foundation, your emotional core strength. It's a very emotional house, and this is a very emotional roller coaster kind of a moon because of its opposition to Uranus. So you could expect to be a bit up and down emotionally, Leo, even for reasons you can't explain. Hidden reasons, sort of things at the deep core level of who you are. In fact, there might be something being illuminated at your very core that you thought you dealt with years ago, but it's coming back from the past, and you have to really sort through that emotional feeling, that emotional wounding. You have to find some sort of a way to navigate the past because of the trine to Saturn, and that can cause a lot of emotion as well. So that's the first thing that I'm seeing for our beautiful Leo friends. This is a house of hidden motivations as well. And Scorpio, of all signs in the house of hidden motivations, is very secretive about the motivations of life and what you're really up to. I think many, particularly Leo rising people, they're so light and fresh and bubbly, but they often do carry things, their real reasons behind things very close to their chest because of this formation in their chart. This full moon might be highlighting and illuminating for you, Leo, what those hidden motivations are, so they don't remain a secret from yourself any longer, even if they're secret from everybody else in the world. You might be really coming to terms with who you are and why you are who you are, and as well as coming to terms with your need for security, safety, and stability and belonging. It's the house of our tribe, where we feel most comfortable, where we feel most at home. And if there's been any sort of upheaval in that regard, this full moon is going to show you why you don't feel stable, why you don't feel secure, why it feels that life is precarious. Unfortunately, one of the themes with this full moon is trust issues, and this is the house of family. Family being parents, particularly the maternal parent is often seen from here, and the maternal family line is seen from the 4th house. Also, any role we have as a parent. So you might be not trusting yourself to be a good parent. Maybe we all have times when we think, oh man, I shouldn't have got angry over that particular incident, or I was just stressed and tired and exacerbated, and I flew off the handle, and I don't trust myself to be a good parent anymore. That might come up for you. Or you might have trust issues with your own parents, thinking, I don't think they've got the best in mind for me. They just want me to be a reflection of their own ego, and I think they're actually, not looking for what I want, looking out for what I want, or helping me to live my best life. And so you maybe have some doubts creep in and trust issues regarding parents and family. This is also, as I said, the house of your tribe, the people, the way you feel like you belong. And unfortunately, this is a full moon that can cause some little doubts to creep in. I don't know if I really do belong with these people, or I'm getting the sense that they actually don't love me, or that they don't care for me as I thought they did. And, this may or may not be the case, but the perception is represented by this full moon in Scorpio. So whether you buy into that or not, it's entirely up to you, and probably a representation of your natal chart as well. This is also a representation of the fourth house represents the people that you share a home with. Now that can be your family, but it can also be your renting buddies. And so there might be a bit of underhanded, goodness knows what, going on with your renting buddies. Somebody sharing a house with you, maybe they're getting involved in the underworld. Full moon in Scorpio conjunct the particular fixed star at the 22nd degree is an underworld star. So, your renting buddies might be getting mixed up in something that's a bit of no good, perhaps, or something a bit underhanded or a bit secretive and behind the scenes. So that's another way that can manifest. In a very practical sense, Leo, this is a full moon that represents the culmination, the fulfillment, the going as far as you can go with regard to your actual bricks and mortar home, property, real estate, land, gardens, where you live, your domestic environment. And so some of you might be actually reaching some level of fulfillment. It's funny, I am having some renovation work done on my home to create a bit more storage space for us, and I feel this is very much pertaining to this energy. I'm a Leo sun, and so definitely some sort of culmination, like we have been living. It's so interesting. As a Pisces rising, we've had Jupiter moving through my fourth house, and my fourth house is Gemini, and of course Gemini is small things, Jupiter is big, and we have felt too cramped for the last year. Not enough space for all our stuff and all our interests and so forth, and our home has felt very tight and cluttered. Well, here we go. That's my Pisces rising sign and what I've been feeling. Here with my Leo sun sign, here is an indication that we're going to be doing something about it. There's a culminating fulfillment, a flourishing energy of a full moon in my fourth house. That means it's time to deal with that. It's time to put some storage in that's going to help us with all our issues in that regard. Just an example here, so that you might be doing something to your home that helps deal with a certain issue in your home environment. Maybe you're deciding you want to have a veggie patch or a greenhouse, try and grow your own veggies without them, the spray getting all over them from the chemtrails and stuff like that. So you get a greenhouse and some lighting or whatever to help your plants grow. That could be something that you're looking into here, Leo. Or anything to do with property, anything to do with land and home and real estate and private affairs, farming, all of these things are fourth house things. There might be some illumination, some revealing of what you can do in these realms to make life better for you and to give you a stronger foundation, because the fourth house is your foundation. If we don't have a strong domestic life, if we don't have a strong home environment, it's really hard to do life well. If you're having to come home to an environment that you hate, how are you ever going to regroup and re-energize to deal with the world out there? I was talking to one of my friends at my place of employment, and they were saying how their son used to come to stay with them after work and have dinner with them instead of going home to his partner, because he didn't want to be home with his partner, and really put it off for as long as he could every single night. How tragic to not want to be home. This is where we need to feel comfortable. This is where we need to feel we can put down our roots. And if things aren't right here, nothing will be right in the rest of our horoscope. So it's possible, Leo, that this full moon might be illuminating what is not right in the foundation of your life that needs to be set to rights so that the rest of your life works and works well. Be that being able to go home and be comfortable with who's there, or being able to have enough storage to make life function efficiently. Whatever it is, something may be being illuminated for you to address as a result of the full moon in your fourth house. Thank you, Leo. Virgo rising, Virgo sun, and Virgo moon people. Well, the energy of the full moon, Virgo, is falling for you in the third house. And so this is where there's some significant changes likely to be taking place as a result of the full moon here. This is where there could be some movement, some restlessness that comes to the fore that really starts to rear its head. So, you might be thinking about moving homes or changing your environment or your neighborhood in some way. This is an energy of change in a house that's restless. So many of you Virgo people might be looking for new solutions and change in your life that's going to help life feel better for you. And certainly when we have a full moon, it illuminates our options. It gives light to our choices. Also, this full moon represents the culmination. Now, if you've been feeling uncomfortable in your environment, not just your domestic life, but in your neighborhood or the city where you live or, that sort of thing, your location, then this full moon is going to sort of call that to an end and say, okay, well, time's up, time to go, time to change, time to move. And of course, the trine to the North Node is going to take you somewhere that is more like your destiny. Remember, I spoke in the introduction, Virgo, about how the moon is going to be moving by the 22nd of May to a conjunction with the North Node. It could be that between the full moon on the 13th and the conjunction with the North Node on the 22nd, you're in a process of evaluating where am I going to be, where am I going to go, and then when the moon conjuncts the North Node, you make a decision. I want to move here, I want to live there. So the third house is also what we think about, where our mind goes. And unfortunately, this is a full moon that has a bit of a sinister side to it. You might be really sort of in a cynical state of mind or a skeptical state of mind, sort of having a few trust issues about your neighbors, about your friendships, about your siblings, kind of like doubting things. It's a very doubting Thomas kind of energy, this one, particularly to do with neighbors and community and so forth. And this could be influencing this feeling of restlessness, I want to get out of here kind of thing as well. So for Virgo friends, your relatives, your neighbours, your siblings might be all getting a bit scrutinised by you. Can I trust them? Are they really out for what is good and right, or are they just playing some sort of game? Scorpio here is making you want to get to the bottom of their motivations and to understand what makes them tick as well. This is, like I said, a culminating energy. The full moon represents reaching the end of the road with something or someone. And again, we come back to this restless energy that might say, I'm sick of my neighbours. We had somebody into work the other day who was just sharing how she was living next door to some drug den and she had an absolute gutful of it and, just wanted the neighbours gone. And you might be feeling similarly. I'm sick of these neighbours. They're dodgy as. I'm out of here. They're not moving. I can't seem to get them out. The police are doing nothing. I'm gone. So the end of the road with regard to some situation in your neighborhood. Now, I've given you a rather dark illustration, and the reason I've given that dark illustration is because this is this full moon is conjunct a very difficult fixed star at the 22nd degree. So I'm not expecting that it's going to be all, sunshine, lollipops and rainbows with your neighbors as a result of this full moon. I think there will be a culmination of energy because of a difficulty. But know that whatever happens, as I said in the introduction, is for the highest good. We've got the destiny point here being activated by a trine from this full moon. It's going to take you to a better place, better neighbors, better community, sense of belonging, all that stuff. So it's about learning to trust the divine as well as trusting, siblings, friends, neighbors, and so forth. So that's one way I feel that this could be manifesting. If you are somebody who has a small business, that's also represented from this area of the chart. And it could be that something is reaching its ending with a small business, maybe a marketing campaign you've been running or a particular product you've been selling. You've decided to discontinue that one. There could be some sort of change with regard to a small business, something you're doing in your business, something you're doing for your business as well. There could be an end of some sort of social media or communication approach that you've been taking that could take place as well. If you've been running a workshop, maybe your series of workshops coming to an ending. If you've been running a seminar or a webinar, these are all seen from the third house. There's this culminating energy. Okay, you've been advertising your webinar for 2 months now. Now it's all on. The webinar is happening, culminating under the full moon in Scorpio. Now, one thing that's interesting, and we don't often hear people talking about this because it is, I guess it's rather scary, but this house, the third house, is the 8th from the 8th. So it's like a double whammy 8th house influence. And the 8th house is fast and rapid change, big change, sudden turns around. It's also, this is why this third house is so restless and can make a sudden turn on a dime, so to speak, to change our life and our environment. But it can also mean that, it's like the third house isn't a house of crisis, but the 8th house is. So there could be some like crisis with a neighbor, crisis with a business that causes us to make significant changes, again, to take us into our destiny. So don't fear it. It's just part of the energy that actually needs to unfold with this combination. Do be very careful about where you go and who you're with under this full moon, because the 8th house is an energy of accidents as well. And being that this is the 8th from the 8th, you want to just make sure every safety precaution is in place, just so you know you've covered all your bases, done what you can, leave the rest in the hands of the gods, as they say. This is the house of bravery. So, I'm not saying get hung up or anxious or worried in any way. This is a house of bravery, trust. Trust is the lesson here with the full moon here in Scorpio. Be brave, trust, tap into your willpower and your courage where you need to. So I do feel that there's change on the cards in some sort of significant way for Virgo. I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing. The ultimate result will be part of your purpose and meaning in life. Trust what unfolds in order to take you there, I feel, for my Virgo friends. Thank you, Virgo. Okay, Libra rising, Libra sun, and Libra moon people. The energy of the full moon, and thank you for waiting until lucky last, Libra. The energy of the full moon for you guys is falling in the 2nd house. Now, this is where we can expect sudden change in our life. And this is with a financial situation, with our food, with our shelter, with our clothing, with our material resources, material things, with anything valuable. There's likely to be some shift of energy and a sudden change because it's being activated by the sun and the planet Uranus in the 8th house. So really a full moon here on this financial axis does indicate that there could be some windfall that comes your way, suddenly unexpected, that lands in your lap. But also it's not really energy of loss. Loss is a 12th house energy, Libra. So I'm seeing a shift of energy with regard to finances and resources, but it is at the 22nd degree. So I feel something is dying in your life. Something will end in your life. Something metaphorically will finish up and conclude in your life in order for something to culminate financially for you. So, that could look like a million different scenarios, of course. Your old car dies, for example, and you're like, that's it. Well, looks like we have to get a new car, but God damn it, we've needed one for so long. It's high time. So goodbye to our old car. There's a resource that we need for our journey through life. And lo and behold, maybe grandma says, well, I'm not driving anymore because the doctor's taken my license away from me because my eyes have got so bad. So I want you to have my lovely little, 2019 model, blah, blah, blah. Off you go. It could look something like that. Something surprising, something suddenly changing, but something ending that brings you some sort of a material benefit in life. So I feel that this is not necessarily a negative energy for our Libra people. If we had a 12th house lord or something like that involved in this combination by being here, then we might, or making some sort of a difficult aspect to our moon here, then we might expect that there would be a loss of some description that felt a bit painful, but I'm not really sensing that for our Libra friends. Trust issues are something that is, set up by the state of this chart and the full moon in Scorpio. So there might be trust issues about like a banking institution. Oh my God, I'm a Libra moon. Let me tell you, one financial institution that I had to get a loan from a couple of years ago has turned out to be the dodgiest financial institution in Australia. And my God, I just found that out yesterday. So not happy about that. I certainly have trust issues with this organisation and I want to get out of this loan ASAP. Absolutely exactly what this is representing here. Trust issues with a banking institution or a money lender of some description. Trust issues with, you buy something off Temu and, you're trusting it's going to be fantastic. You might get it and think, oh my God, this is ridiculous polyester. I'll never wear that. That kind of thing. Trust issues regarding stuff. Material goods, resources, banking, finance, investments, and blah, blah, blah. So trust issues, definitely a part of this full moon energy, Libra. This is also a culminating energy. Full moons are always speaking to the end of something, the fruiting of something, the finishing up of something. So this really does speak to maybe something ending with regard to where money is coming from, income that you earn, perhaps, or it doesn't necessarily mean no more income coming in. That's definitely not what it means, but a definite change. For example, you might be like me and do astrology readings and you just decide, I do not have time to be doing astrology readings and this and this and this and this. So I'm going to culminate and finish up my astrology readings. And that will end that source of income in order that I might be able to get my other projects and other sources of leveraging happening. So this is just one example. It doesn't mean a loss. Again, we don't have a 12th house influence playing into this, but so it may not be a loss. It may be more like a change of where the income's coming from, which means an ending of one thing to allow for something else. We can also have a culminating energy with our resources. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that we are about to have a little bit of a renovation to add more storage to our home, much needed. What's that for? Storing our resources. Hello, full moon in the second house of storage and resources, storing our stuff, storing our material goods for all the projects that we like to be involved in. So, perfect energy. Full moon in the house of storage, the realm of the chart that has to do with storing and keeping things, boom, absolutely perfect energy there. This is also, Libra, the house of the 5 senses. So you might be, it's quite an emotional full moon, but it's more than just feeling emotional, with your feelings. It's more to do with being highly sensitized in the physical body. So for our beautiful Libran friends, it's a good time to get a massage, really good time to get a massage under this energy. It's a good time to have some sort of beauty treatment, maybe a facial or something like that. Check up with the eyes doctor or the ear doctor or something. Maybe get some new makeup, because these things are sensitized now and you're more reactive than usual to things you can touch, taste, see, hear and smell. So, you're going to have more of a sensitivity to what feels good for you, what feels right for you, and what doesn't. So your taste buds might be a bit on edge. If you're not inclined to go and eat that hot chili pepper, don't eat it. Your taste buds might explode. If you're not inclined, if you've got ticklish feet and you're booked in for a massage, you might need to say, well, hey, don't go near the feet because the feet are really ticklish. And so, you've got to be conscious of your heightened sensitivities with the 5 senses. So while it's not an emotional sensitivity per se, in this house for Libran people, it's the 5 senses that are highly activated by this full moon. So you might notice that's particularly more on edge than usual. Well, dear Librans, we have gone on for quite some time here and covered so much information. I hope this reading has proved valuable to you, and I look forward to sharing more lunation readings at my Patreon page and more astro weather reports here at the YouTube channel as well in the future. But thank you for being part of my precious audience in whatever capacity that looks like for you.